Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 408 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. The 20th sword form, the 20th sword form. Founding Emperor pulled out his sword and was visibly confused. He swung the Carefree sword aimlessly to try and find the 20th sword form. Yan Yunxi's gaze flashed, and she suggested, Emperor, you reverse-engineered all of his sword skill tricks from his sword skills. Thus, what do you think Celestial Venerable Mu is doing right now? Sneaking into Carefree village. Without any hesitation, Founding Emperor commanded, find me the secret of the sword skill divine art and the way to beat me. Start the search from Supreme Emperor Heaven. The reason that he proposed this 2-month period was to understand my sword skills, not to wait for Fengqing to establish Yudu. You two really are family. Both of you think in similar patterns. Yan Yunxi laughed and backed down, saying, I shall no longer disrupt your comprehension of the 20th sword form. I wish you the best of luck. Carefree Village's Supreme Emperor Heaven. Xu Jun followed Qin Mu along wherever he went. However, Qin Mu didn't go to the academies there. Instead, he walked in the hills and the woods to check out the earth and the hills. Qin Mu even used his vital qi to form a sword and used the drill sword form to drill deep into the hill. Holy infant, what are you looking for? Xu Jun was perplexed. Why do you call me holy infant too? Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xu Jun said, I'm a master of creation, so I have to call you that. It's a custom of ours. What are you searching for? Qin Mu formed a sword with his vital qi and drilled fragments of rocks from deep beneath the earth. He picked up some of them and squeezed them in his palm, saying, with one blade of Founding Emperor, 33 heavens were formed, which nearly split the parameter world in two. This incident is peculiar. Xu Jun was even more perplexed now. We have been here for quite some time. The landmass and everything on it that the parameter masters of creation live on was visualized by them. This landmass floats in the void and isn't linked. Qin Mu formed a sword with his vital qi again, before stabbing it into a mountain of Carefree Village's Supreme Emperor Heaven. The sword energy drilled deep into the mountain as Qin Mu continued, it sounds terrifying that, with one blade, 33 heavens were formed. If Founding Emperor really did use one blade to cut off 33 landmasses of the parameter world to form 33 heavens, his power would outmatch that of all of the masters of creation and divine King Lang Wo. If so, how did the masters of creation resist Carefree Village for 20,000 years? Xu Jun was stunned and said, clearly it was Founding Emperor, who carved 33 heavens with one blade, for it was formed under his sword. The 33 heavens occupied half of the landmass of the parameter world. However, it may not have been Founding Emperor's blade that carved the parameter world in half. Qin Mu extracted some rock fragments from the mountain and laughed. Divine King Xu Jun, you are too honest. You don't seem to know how sly Founding Emperor is despite looking honest. He squeezed the fragments and saw some metal powder within them. Qin Mu blew, and the rock fragments flew away. Yet, the powder remained. He said, with one blade, he formed 33 heavens with mountains, rivers, and lakes. If Founding Emperor wasn't the number one in the sword path, the masters of creation would be. Perhaps the Grand Emperor had such power, but his consciousness attainment wasn't that high, which could only mean that. Qin Mu raised a finger and pointed at the mountain ahead. He waved his finger gently, and a sword light sliced it in half. He smiled and said, the 33 heavens of Carefree Village were forged prior to his arrival. This mountain split in two and revealed the rough metal and rocks combination inside that made up the mountain. Xu Jun's heart shuddered as he shockingly observed the intricate structure that made up the mountain. The mountain was made out of divine gold and other divine materials. The divine gold was forged into parts, with runes imprinted on it as if it was part of a colossal machine. At the base of the mountain, the divine gold and divine materials were laid deep into the earth. Clearly, the entire Carefree village's supreme emperor heaven was a large man-made object created with divine gold and divine materials. This Carefree village's supreme emperor heaven was a heaven created by countless skilled workers. As expected, Qin Mu put his hands together, and the cracked mountain shut itself. He continued, I heard that during the end of the founding emperor era, founding emperor ordered Sacra Buddha, Li Yuran, to lead all of the heavenly craftsmen to build Carefree village. Saint Woodcutter opposed it, but founding emperor continued to order Li Yuran to build Carefree village. Shu Jun giddily mumbled, Carefree village should have been opened by founding emperor's blade. Divine King Lang Wo couldn't have been wrong. How could it have been created by Li Yuran? Li Yuran was nicknamed Heavenly King of War in the founding Emperor Celestial Heavens. This came from how he was good at creating divine weapons for all, not because of his leadership. Qin Mu explained, he built Carefree village, gathering all of the capable smiths to build 33 gargantuan divine weapons that hid the underlying sword reasoning of founding Emperor's sword path. In other words, these 33 divine weapons are the 33 heavens of founding Emperor's sword path materialized. He looked at Carefree village's supreme emperor heaven's geography and said, the rivers, the mountains, all of the geographic features here are the path of his sword techniques, including the cities, villages, and sculptures. Shu Jun was still muddle-headed as he mumbled, that's impossible, right? Him opening 33 heavens with one blade was witnessed by countless masters of creation, and divine King Lang Wo personally. There was no way for him to mess with divine King Lang Wo, the chiefs, and the elders had he moved Carefree village's 33 heavens here. It would have been too difficult. The chiefs of today are just as strong as me back then, not to mention divine King Lang Wo, who would have already been way stronger than me. Qin Mu walked towards the nearest god city and laughed. I once obtained the Carefree sword. It was founding emperor's sword, but I didn't know about that at first. I just felt that it was light and easy to use. Later on, I found out that it was founding emperor's sword, making it an imperial sword. Isn't it weird for an imperial sword to be so light? Shu Jun followed him quickly, saying, isn't it easy to make a precious artifact light? Li Yuran was the #1 craftsman of the heavens, so the Carefree sword he forged could indeed be light. However, peculiarly enough, I have rarely been able to unleash its power. Qin Mu said, in theory, I should be able to activate the imprinted runes in it. However, I rarely unleashed its power. The Carefree sword seemed hollow. Shu Jun finally understood, saying, your meaning is that founding emperor hid Carefree village's 33 heavens in the Carefree sword so that when he stabbed the parameter world upon arrival, Carefree village flew out of it and formed the 33 heavens. Qin Mu nodded and said, there were a lot of capable people under founding emperor. My master, Wen Tiange, was his Saint Woodcutter, heavenly teacher Zi she was a formation expert, and Sacra Li Yuran was heaven's #1 craftsman. With their intelligence and capabilities, hiding Carefree village in the Carefree sword should be doable. After all, they have already experimented with it once. He remembered the Imperial Gate divine knife that Mingju Heavenly King Qian Shu had. It contained all sorts of collapsible places to hide things in. Wretch! Shu Jun angrily said. Qin Mu was furious and smacked his head, angrily saying, that's my ancestor. Only I can scold him, you can't. Shu Jun was furious too. I can't. The two of them entered the city, and Qin Mu inquired about the academies from Carefree village's inhabitants. Shu Jun couldn't help but say, if you realized that Carefree village's 33 heavens are founding emperor's 33 heavens of the sword path, then why do you still need to seek knowledge in the academies? Qin Mu walked into the Supreme Emperor Heaven Academy with his third eye open. Every god and divine arts practitioner inside ignored them and allowed them in. That was an illusion his consciousness created, which enveloped the whole academy. Qin Mu's consciousness today was more powerful than before. He could fool gods and devils who were at the God Execution Stage Realm and Jade Capital Realm, let alone those at the Jade Pavilion Realm. Of course, that was under the condition that he wasn't hostile. If he displayed hostility, he would still be detected. Checking Founding Emperor's Sword Path Divine Arts is only one of my motives. My other motive is to see how much Carefree Village's paths, skills, and divine arts have improved. Qin Mu plainly said, 20,000 years ago, there was a great breakthrough in paths, skills, and divine arts in the Founding Emperor era. This caused new paths, skills, and divine arts to be created all the time. I want to see whether such reforms have stagnated after they went to hide in Carefree Village. He came to the Academy Depository and walked inside in front of the Sentry Gods, saying, Saint Woodcutter said that the thing he regrets the most in his life is not persuading Founding Emperor against going to Carefree Village. I want to see whether his judgment was correct. There were a lot of people in the depository, including many divine arts practitioners. Qin Mu stood in front of a bookshelf and put himself in a deep sleep. Countless little Qin Mus flew out of his dream and ran around, reading all sorts of books in a noisy manner. It was a scene to behold. Yet, everyone in the depository seemed unable to witness it, as they were busy with their own things. Shu Jun was reading these books as well, but he used a different method. He scanned them directly with his consciousness at an extremely fast rate. However, Qin Mu's entering the path via dreams allowed him to not only skim the books of the depository quickly, but also get the little Qin Mus to try the divine arts, which was something Shu Jun couldn't do. Qin Mu read the entirety of the records in just half a day. Before Shu Jun could finish, Qin Mu walked out of the depository to observe the scholars of the academy cultivating their divine arts. He saw many scholars visualizing and fusing consciousness and vital qi. The paths, skills, and divine arts he saw were products of the merger of consciousnesses and vital qi. Clearly, after arriving here, the Founding Emperor era people accepted the divine treasures and celestial palaces cultivation system like the masters of creation. This constituted a reform. However, Qin Mu didn't see the reform that he had witnessed in Eternal Peace. Eternal Peace's reform allowed them to have hundreds more basic rune systems compared to the Founding Emperor era. These early runes of Eternal Peace's reform included the Heavenly Yin runes and the Magnetic Hurricane runes. Outside of that, there were also the Great Tao rune systems of the ancient gods that Qin Mu brought from the celestial heavens. Eternal Peace recalculated with the computational canon of Supreme Molecule, and found out that there were countless Great Tao rune systems of the ancient gods. These were things Carefree Village didn't have. Research on basic runes seemingly stopped after the Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens moved to Carefree Village. This phenomenon is worthy of research. Qin Mu blinked and observed Carefree Village's disciples learning in the academy. These disciples were divine arts practitioners. He observed their spirit and followed them to see their daily routines. He even invaded their minds with his consciousness to see what they were thinking about. He was very perplexed about why the reform abruptly stopped after they moved to Carefree Village. After all, the reform was rolling full steam ahead during the Founding Emperor era. While he was observing the divine arts practitioners, he suddenly realized that a middle-aged Daoist was curiously staring at him and observing him in the Supreme Emperor Heaven Academy. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. The entire academy was shrouded by his consciousness, and everyone would ignore him. Yet this middle-aged Daoist looked at him as if he was visible to him. Qin Mu smiled at that Daoist, an action which the Daoist returned. "What is your name?" Qin Mu walked up and greeted him. That Daoist hastily returned the greeting, saying, "A relinquished disciple of the Tao sect, Sumai Qing, hereby greets Celestial Venerable Mu." Relinquished disciple of the Tao sect. Qin Mu probed him, "Sumai Qing, what is your relationship with the Tao sect of the primordial realm?" That Daoist waved his horsetail whisk and laughed. "I created it." Qin Mu felt a deep sense of veneration. The Tao sect of the celestial heavens didn't have many real Taoists. It had become a place for descendants and disciples of powerful and influential families to enhance their social status. On the contrary, the Tao sect of eternal peace had plenty of real Taoists. They dedicated themselves to the study of Tao and algebra, developing the paths, skills, and divine arts of eternal peace. The middle-aged Daoist, Sumai Qing, a relinquished disciple of the celestial heavens Tao sect, created a Tao sect in the primordial realm. He was worthy of respect and admiration. Also, Qin Mu had heard some rumors about this particular relinquished disciple. He was originally from the celestial heavens Tao sect, and had descended to the lower bound during the later years of the High Emperor era. He was partially responsible for the advancement of the paths, skills, and divine arts during the founding emperor era. Forging techniques had reached high attainments during the founding emperor era. However, the forging of divine weapons, battleships, god cities, and the reform of formation spells all required algebra. During that time, the algebra of the Tao sect was a major driving force of the founding emperor era, even going as far as saying that he had a part to play in Sakra Li Yuran's creation of Carefree village. The appearance of this middle-aged Daoist was unremarkable, and not as prominent as the four great heavenly kings and the four great heavenly teachers of the founding emperor era. However, his contribution and impact were significant. People who were good at battles often produced predictable successful battles rather than sensational ones that were eye-catching. Daoist Sumai Qing was one such person. "It's my good fortune to meet Tao Master Su here." Qin Mu smiled and said, "When I was in eternal peace, my relationship with the two generations of the Tao sect's Tao Masters wasn't bad. I didn't expect to actually meet Tao Master Su here." Tao Master Su, the Tao sect you left behind in the lower bound, it is now a pillar of eternal peace's reform. Sumai Qing hurriedly said, "Celestial Venerable, please don't say it like this. I'm not a Tao Master anymore. I have long since given up that position. I'm now a wandering Daoist, teaching here to pass the time. Whatever achievements belong to eternal peace's Tao sect, not me." Qin Mu had good feelings towards him. Sumai Qing was a founder of eternal peace's Tao sect. However, he didn't claim credit for himself, unlike some people who always tried to attribute all sorts of achievements to themselves. Did Celestial Venerable Mu come here to prepare for his battle with His Majesty that is going to take place 2 months from now? The middle-aged Daoist blinked his eyes and smiled. "You can consider it a mistake to have come here to seek founding emperor's paths, skills, and divine arts. You should get yourself to high ground and monitor the geographical trends of Supreme Emperor Heaven." Qin Mu was stunned as he cried out, "Daoist, how could you divulge founding emperor's sword path to me? By doing this, you are betraying founding emperor. In that case, Celestial Venerable Mu has comprehended founding emperor's 33 heavens of the sword path." Sumai Qing smiled. "I have revealed too much, and have underestimated the wisdom of Celestial Venerable Mu. I have betrayed the celestial heavens before, so it's no big deal betraying founding emperor. When Carefree village was being set up, I stood on the side of Wenqianga, and believed we shouldn't establish Carefree village. The difference is that I wasn't as resolute as Wenqianga." He sighed, frowning until vertical lines appeared on his forehead. He then said, "That year, when the founding emperor calamity erupted, I followed founding emperor and left. In the end, I came and stayed here for 20,000 years, feeling depressed since I couldn't fulfill my ambitions. Ultimately, I was unable to pull myself together, so I stayed in the bottommost level of Carefree village to teach. Wen Tiange was more resolute than me and refused to enter Carefree village. He remained outside, leading remnant armies to fight on, never setting foot here. I often thought, had I been as resolute as him and fought until the end, maybe His Majesty wouldn't have come to Carefree village. He fell into a daze and seemed a little inarticulate. Qin Mu's eyes flickered, and he said, "You want to enlist my help in forcing founding emperor out of Carefree village?" Su Maiqing chuckled. How can a Daoist have such treasonous thoughts? The first form of founding emperor's sword path, Supreme Emperor Heaven Quelling Sword, is hidden in the vein lines of Supreme Emperor Heaven's geography. This sword is founding emperor's first sword, his first heaven, and it is truly powerful. He broke off a tree branch and used it as a sword to display the Supreme Emperor Heaven Quelling Sword. As the tree branch moved in the air, its strokes were made up of basic sword techniques with an impressive air. The strokes then transformed into the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. As the strokes became more unrestrained, they formed majestic mountains and rivers, giving off an aura that was capable of leveling the chaos in heaven and earth. After Su Maiqing had displayed the move, he held the branch in his hands and carefully planted it into the soil. He said, "This little shoot will one day become a towering tree." Qin Mu closed his eyes and recollected the Supreme Emperor Heaven Quelling Sword that Su Maiqing just displayed. After some time, he opened his eyes and bowed to express his thanks. "Thank you, Tao Master, for your guidance." "Tao Master, I have something I don't understand. Why did the reform of the founding emperor era stop after founding emperor came to Carefree village?" After Su Maiqing was done planting the tree, he got up and straightened himself. He grinned and asked, "Celestial Venerable, what do you think of my spirits today?" Qin Mu frankly said, "Gloomy, pale, and without fighting spirit." Su Maiqing laughed. "That is the spirit of the entire Carefree village." Qin Mu was stunned. Founding emperor's reform followed the will of the heavens and wishes of the people. The theme of the reform was determined by Wen Tiange. It was mainly to guard and protect. Su Maiqing visualized some water and used it to water the tree branch as he said, "The gods guard and protect the people, serving them and making their lives better." The people groomed divine arts practitioners, who would go on to become gods, creating a virtuous cycle. The more divine arts that were created by divine arts practitioners and gods, the stronger and more prosperous the founding emperor era would be. However, when the founding emperor calamity erupted, the gods stopped protecting the people. He looked at that little tree sprout, seemingly in a daze. After some time, he sighed. The gods abandoned the people and left. Therefore, the entire spirit of the era instantly evaporated, and the reform was halted. There are people in the imperial court praising Carefree village for absorbing the masters of creation's visualization concepts, so the reform is still ongoing. They praised until the heavens shook loudly, to the point that they actually believed it. I, on the contrary, refused to believe. He gave a snort, turning to leave as he said, "I don't believe it. The base for reform is gone, and its theme is now useless. They spent all their time praising and bragging, but where is the reform? Loads of rubbish, flattery, and fawning. I won't associate myself with them. I hope you can beat up founding emperor until he becomes sober." Qin Mu was stunned, watching him as he left. Shu Jun came over and followed his gaze. He saw Su Maiqing's back view and asked puzzledly, "What is Holy Infant looking at?" "Nothing much." Qin Mu composed himself and laughed. "It's just that I suddenly experienced some thoughts and emotions." "Divine King, are you done?" Shu Jun nodded and said, "I have familiarized myself with the paths, skills, and divine arts of the past million years. Although I'm not entirely clear about the path I am going to take in the future, this has given me some form of a plan. Shall we rise up into the air to see Supreme Emperor Heaven's geography? There's no need. Qin Mu smiled and said, I have already grasped Founding Emperor's Supreme Emperor Heaven quelling sword. Let's go to Carefree Village's Supreme Brightness Heaven. Xu Jun was puzzled. Nevertheless, he followed him and flew towards Supreme Brightness Heaven. Supreme Brightness Heaven was connected to Supreme Emperor Heaven by a divine mountain, along with 2 heavens. The 2 reached the foot of the divine mountain, and flew to its peak, entering Supreme Brightness Heaven. They then did the same thing again, finding the biggest academy in Supreme Brightness Heaven, and indulging themselves in the academy's entire book collection. Qin Mu was still faster than Xu Jun by a step. He finished viewing the book collection before him and had memorized them to heart. He was about to leave the library when a voice suddenly said coldly behind him, Celestial Venerable Mu, you lapped up information without digesting it. Based on your casual browsing, do you think you can solve His Majesty Founding Emperor's sword techniques and defeat him? That is wishful thinking. Qin Mu looked in the direction where the voice came from and saw a big burly man, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. On his back, he carried a sword case, revealing several sword hilts. He had already met an expert, who wasn't mesmerized by his consciousness illusion, hence when this burly man appeared not to be affected by it, he wasn't very surprised. After all, Carefree Village had plenty of experts from the Founding Emperor era. After they migrated there, some fell into depression and became ambitionless, hiding there and living a secluded life. Qin Mu asked, May I ask who you are? Founding Emperor's Sun Guardian, Yang Rinyuan. The burly man put down his sword case and grabbed a sword hilt. He tugged at it forcefully, but failed to pull out the sword. He scratched his head and said, Celestial Venerable Mu, please wait a moment. I haven't drawn my sword for 20,000 years. This treasure that I refined has become rusty. He continued to tug at it with all his strength, and finally managed to draw a sword out. It was littered with spots of heavy rust. The sword isn't rusty. What's rusty is the Sun Guardian's sword heart. Qin Mu examined his treasured sword and laughed. The rust on the Sun Guardian's sword heart is indeed very serious. Wait for me to polish it. The burly man, Yang Rinyuan, walked out of the library and came to a small stream beside the academy. He began to polish the rusty sword, the rust turning the stream red. Yang Rinyuan panted as he polished his sword. The more he polished, the rustier the sword became. He got a shock and fell into a daze by the river. Qin Mu stood behind him, quietly waiting. He then saw the shoulders of this burly man moving, not knowing when he had started crying. His tears were like fire, flying out from his eyes and transforming into flames that danced in the air. What do I want this sword for? What is it useful for? This F***king's sword can't even be polished. He suddenly rose and jabbed the sword at Qin Mu. Qin Mu stood there motionlessly. Around him was sword light, which was emitting kai-kai noises. Yang Rinyuan waved his sword, and the rust-spotted sword transformed into a rust world around Qin Mu. The world looked like a steel world invaded by time, and it was filled with a decadent and decaying aura. If the heart isn't clear, then the sword won't be clear. Even the Supreme Brightness Flood sword has become rusty. Yang Rinyuan gave off a loud roar while his sword danced at a quicker pace. He continued to roar angrily as he flew up and stabbed forward with his sword. He cried in rage, "What is this rusty sword good for? What use do I have for a rusty heart? In the past, my sword was only slightly inferior to Founding Emperor's quick sword. It was a scorching sword. Now, it isn't quick, and my sword and heart aren't hot anymore." He looked like he had descended into madness, as he displayed the second form of Founding Emperor's sword path, Supreme Brightness Flood Sword. The scene of the rust-filled Supreme Brightness heaven floating around Qin Mu was one that would shock the hearts of the people. After displaying his move, Yang Rinyuan gave into the rage in his heart and threw his sword away as far as he could. However, he regretted it and ran over to pick up his sword. He then continued to polish his sword by the stream as he cried. Shu Jun walked over and asked puzzledly, what happened to him? His Dao heart was hurt. Qin Mu said, let's go to Pure Brightness Heaven to have a look. Shu Jun hesitated before saying, initially, when I looked at the paths, skills, and divine arts of Carefree Village, I found them novel. After going through 2 book collections of 2 big academies, I discovered that most of them are repeated. Holy Infant, there's no need to visit other heavens academies. Qin Mu laughed and said, there's no harm in going to take a look. Shu Jun had no choice but to follow along. The two arrived at Pure Brightness Heaven. Before they could find the academy, they saw an old man by the road, burning joss paper in front of a grave. He was on the ground, crying. Qin Yi, you died young. Such a terrible death. Shu Jun laughed. Old man, I had a friend as courageous as you. He dared to insult the Grand Emperor. When I visited him the next year, the grass on his grave was as tall as a man. Part 408 end here. Thank you for watching.